Good evening. This is Matt Mosley. I'm the host of Big Pig Energy. Here with me tonight, we got Blake Standridge, Coach Kevin Kelley, and Dani Beason out of Virginia. Hey, real quick before we get started, guys, I want to say something really fast. Today the BPE team wants to take a moment to share our thoughts and prayers with the family and community of Ouachita Baptist University in the sudden loss of senior defensive lineman number 96, Clark Yarbrough of Rolette, Texas. Unfortunately, Clark collapsed today in the facility and passed away. And we just want to take a moment to let the folks of Ouachita Baptist and his family and friends to know that we're thinking about them and that we're going to keep them in our thoughts over the next couple of weeks. Getting at the post-game review, it's a big week last week for this week. First game of the season in Fayetteville. Arkansas entered Saturday's game ranked 19, Cincinnati 23. I don't think anybody really thought that it was going to be a cakewalk for the Hogs. When we were talking scores this past week, most of us picked Arkansas to win. One of us didn't, but that's okay. But in his defense, he thought we were picking point spreads instead of picking chalk games. But that's okay. That's my fault. I'm going to take the lick on that one. But the Hogs played in a very physical matchup this week by all accounts, and there were a lot of first-game mistakes made on both sides of the ball by both teams. The Hogs came out on top 31-24. And, guys, you have to go all the way back to 1974, 48 years ago, was the last time Arkansas started off the season with a top 25 win against University of Southern California, 22-7 in War Memorial Stadium down in Little Rock. I think the only person in this space, in this podcast right now that might have been even close to being alive might be Coach Kelley. I wasn't even a thought in my daddy's brain in 1974. The Razorbacks, 5. You were 5?
I was 5.
I was 5. Okay. I wasn't even alive yet. I wasn't born until 79, Coach. So the Razorbacks had a total attendance of 74,751 people in attendance yesterday for the ball game. Blake, I know you were there. I know you were sitting in those bougie seats in the end zone. Tell us what the crowd was like. How was the crowd yesterday for the first game of the season?
It was great. The entire game day atmosphere was great. People, just the energy around the stadium, around tailgates. It was you can just tell there's excitement that's been brewing for a while. So cool to see. It was a really good atmosphere. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Yeah, good report.
That's awesome. I hate missing the first game of the season, but I really hated missing the first game of the season against a top 25 opponent. I mean, if you weren't able to be in Fayetteville yesterday and you were watching on TV, sometimes there's a disconnect between the environment that's actually going on in the stadium and what you're seeing on television. It doesn't always jive. Sometimes when you're watching the game, you can see when the crowd starts getting into it, the camera will start to shake and you'll see the stadium kind of move a little bit. And those are the fun games. But just being in the environment, feeling the people, the tailgating, all those things, it really, really tough to miss out. Starting out, we're going to kind of hit this thing running from the first quarter. Cincinnati went out to toss, won the toss, deferred to kick the second half, and then the Hogs came out firing. 17-yard pass to Matt Landers, a senior transfer from Toledo via Georgia, guy we talked about last week. Matt Landers is somebody that I've really got an eyeball on this season. I think this guy with the length, the way that he's able to catch the ball, and you put that extra gear of his with his foot speed, I think he's going to give KJ Jefferson a huge target the rest of the season. Jefferson followed up with another 6-yard pass to number 9, Jaden Hazelwood, a junior transfer out of Oklahoma. That's another one that, Dani said and a couple others have said, as somebody we're here to watch. We want to see what Jaden Hazelwood can do with the football in his hands. So right out of the gate, we talked about this last week, I thought we were going to try to establish the run right out of the gate. Coach Kelley said he thought that they were going to try to get the ball going early to the receivers to set up that comfortability, that chemistry, get KJ kind of in a mojo, get him rolling. And exactly what Coach told us last week. he ended up on the short end of the stick on that pass, though, and it ended up forcing the Hogs to punt. They played 5 plays on the first series for a total of 25 yards to start the game. Cincinnati, on the other hand, they came out and got to going pretty fast right off the gate. 11 plays, 4 of them being first downs before number 3, Dwight McLaughlin, Nudie, stepped in front of a Ben Bryant pass for an interception and returned it back for 51 yards, setting up the Hogs with great field position. And I was reading some notes, guys. I don't know if you know this. This is the 27th interception since the start of the 2020 season. That's 24 games. Guess who it ties for the most in that span of time? Big Bad Alabama. That's a hell of a stat. I didn't know it until I was looking at the game notes that the university put together. 27 INTs in the last 3 seasons. That's a huge step from where we were to where we're headed and going. It shows marked improvement with the secondary. It shows marked understanding of the guys knowing where they got to be and when they got to be there. Arkansas.
If you would have said that a few years ago, right after the kind of mid of the Chad Morris era, you would have really taken 27 interceptions.
Well, I mean, even Blake, and we'll pause here for a second to talk about this. I mean, even going back, to Bielema when he was here, the defenses that were here when Coach Petrino was doing his thing up on the hill, you didn't see a whole lot of interceptions. You didn't see a whole lot of, it was a bend, don't break kind of a defense, and you didn't see a whole lot of aggressiveness out of the corners in the secondary. That's the one thing that I love about this secondary. The ones that I grew up with, I came up watching Steve Atwater. I came up watching Kenny Hamlin, Tony Bua, Lorenzo Robinson, all those kind of guys that were aggressive. They liked to hit. They loved to contact. Zach Painter was one of my favorites when I was a kid. Guys that would just stick their nose in there and go hit people, go try to make tackles. But they are also ball hawks. I mean, guys that were trying to go after the football. Arkansas would end up marching down the field on the ensuing possession. KJ Jefferson will take the ball into the end zone for the first score of the season on a 15-yard scoring run. Cam Little came in and added the extra point to make the score 7-0 in the first quarter. Want to note, Arkansas started the first quarter 0-3 on third down, so for the average start of the 36-yard line in the first quarter. Coach, can you tell us real quick, I mean, how important is it to stay ahead of the chains on third down? I mean, the average football fan knows how you got to get that first down, you got to keep moving, but for an offense's progression throughout the game, how important is it to stay ahead of the chains?
Well, and that's the one common theme for every team. I don't care if you're a running team, a passing team, a big play team, or whatever. When you get behind the chains, you become really, really predictable, and you narrow yourself down, and you let the defense be the attacker, and you have to be very reactive on offense in that case. And so it's extremely important. And I think you saw that throughout the game on both sides of the ball. If teams got off to a good start and they were ahead of the chains, they were able to convert first down. You had a bad play on the first play of the series or later on first down, and it was tough, and you ended up being a punt. Even when you were driving, and we were driving several times, as were they, got behind the chains halfway through the drive, and a promising drive stalls out. And, some of that's first game, and you hope to be able to clean that stuff up. But some of it is also the coach trying to fill out what does his team do well versus what their team's doing on defense too, because with the newness, the new players, it's just hard to figure out in practice when you're playing yourself.
Well, and moving on, we're talking about the newness. Cincinnati's next drive only lasted 5 plays, and it was for -5 yards, including a costly false start penalty. I mean, those are those first game jitters right out of the box. Guys getting false starts, guys getting holding penalties, just little mental mistakes that get made a lot of times in these early games in the first part of the season. Arkansas State transfer number 99, Terry Hampton, made his presence known on this drive with a huge stop in the middle, including a 1-yard loss. I can't tell you, for a defensive guy and a guy that loves defensive line play, how much I loved watching Terry Hampton yesterday. He just was, and it wasn't that he was just getting in the backfield and getting a whole lot of push, but it became a situation where the guard and the center were having to double team him a lot, because when they would go head up one-on-one, he was getting pushed into the backfield, pushing into the quarterback and causing pressure issues on the quarterback, making him move early. Cincinnati ended up punting. The Hogs' next possession, and this is what's kind of concerning, Coach. The offense sputtered on 3 straight plays, including a false start, costing them a 5 yards, leading to another Max Fletcher punt early in the game. Punt was only 26 yards. Now, Coach, I know you hate punting in football games. Like that's your thing. I get it. But can you explain to our audience why a good punting game is so necessary in games like this from time to time? I mean,
Well,
people I think don't understand how special teams can affect the game.
Well, people, they measure that stuff now in analytics, but they don't bring into the psychology of it. But, a bad punt gives the other team a good psychological advantage. You go shank one for 23 yards and everybody's jacked up. Forget the field position, because that's important. I mean, the longer a team has to go, the less percentage of times they're going to score. That's everybody knows that. It makes common sense, but there's the psychology involved. There's also the efficiency of your practices. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to go spend 20 minutes a day on it, you better do a good job with it. Otherwise, you're wasting your time that you could have been spending on your run game, your pass game, on a defensive situation on goal line or whatever. That's minutes used. Everything you put into practice, you need to get a positive outcome. If you invest your time in it, you better get a reward for it. You better get a return on your investment. And all that stuff factors in, and that's the psychology of it. Nothing's worse, because nobody, I'm gonna promise you this, nobody on that team except the punter wants to work on the punt game. The guys don't really want to be on it, because it's extra time. They got to run down the field and this and that, and get plastered, because that's the most widely big hitting place you can be. But at the same time, nobody wants to be out there. So when they do go out there, it needs to be good, or it has a negative effect on the team that had the bad play. Think about a punt return, a big punt return. How much does that jack the team up that's got the ball? And I'm not huge on the psychological part of those individual moments, except for in those parts of the game right there. It's a big deal.
Well, and on the following possession, this is where things start getting kind of hinky for the Hogs. There was a somewhat controversial personal foul called on Jalen Catalon early for a block below the waist on 72 of Cincinnati, James Tunstall, their starting left tackle. That moved them into field goal range, but Cincinnati, missed a kick on that subsequent possession. Coach, and I've studied this personal foul rule, this low block rule a little bit. I get the spirit of it. Do you think this is going to be one of those things, kind of like the targeting rule was early, to where it's going to ultimately affect the outcome of a game? Because we've got so much RPO in the game these days. And well as I do, this RPO stuff, you're getting a lot of guards and tackles that are getting into the second level and getting downfield as blockers. And I'll be honest with you, a guy Blake's size is going to come at a guy my size's knees every single time to try to take me out of the situation. There was some discussion on TV, and I know there was discussion within the fan base. He hit him about waist high, but my understanding of the rule, anything from the crotch to the shins is an illegal block now.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's misunderstood. We know that they can't go low on offense, but here the last few years they've been emphasizing you can't go low on defense either. And the reason is they're trying to make the game safer. Now, Matt, for you and I that saw what it was, we like the physical parts of the game, and some people are against the new rules and things like that. I'm not personally against them anymore, because I've seen the damage to knees that it can do. Catalans was heavily discussed, and to me, it made it even more difficult because, and we all know this, and I've made no bones about it, he's my favorite player on defense, no question. I think we're going to go as he goes. He's a tough guy. He went, spiraling down in there like a house on fire, but he dropped his shoulders. Now his shoulders, I think, were okay, but then he dropped his head lower than his shoulders. If he had kept his head even with his shoulders, I don't think it's called. But at the last minute, he ducked his head lower than his shoulders, and it was lower than waist level. And I think that's what got the call. They could have called him for spearing, except for they won't call that except for on a ball carrier or a quarterback that just got rid of the ball. And that's to protect him. We've talked about this. We hope the kid can learn to keep his head up, because that's a tough situation. But again, it's hard to get on a kid. That wasn't a late hit. It wasn't something he was going in there and trying to blow up the play. and he was close to making it legal. But I'll be honest, I would have called it too, if nothing else, to remind him to protect himself.
Absolutely, Coach. I mean, that's one thing we talked about last week with Catalan was, can he go in and make a big hit and make a play and keep his head up, or keep his head from making that helmet to shoulder, helmet to helmet contact that cost him early last season. Ultimately we ended up losing him to an injury. We don't know the extent of that yet. We're going to talk about another injury here in a little bit with his partner, the nickelback Miles Slusher. The Hogs got the ball back on their own 20-yard line after that errant kick by Ryan Coe of Cincinnati. They'd move up to the 36 on a 16-yard run by KJ Jefferson to end the first quarter. The Hogs would sputter again to start the second quarter with a 27-yard rush by number 5 Rocket Sanders, but it got called back on a holding penalty on the right side, on the left side. Ultimately it ended the drive, another drive with another Fletcher punt of 40 yards. Cincinnati's ensuing possession would end the same way. Fletcher's brother Mason, both of them from Australia. I think there was a story ESPN put out this week. Mason Fletcher hadn't seen his mom and dad in 2 years, and I think they were able to come into Fayetteville this weekend to see Max, who I don't think they'd seen in 8 months, and be able to see both their sons play on the same field. I mean, I can't imagine as a parent not seeing my kid in person for 2 years. I mean, I've got a son in the Navy, so I kind of understand it a little bit, but still, 2 whole years and not being able to see my kid, I just don't know how they do it. Arkansas's next series, they start showing signs of life. They went 8 plays for 47 yards, but ended with another Fletcher punt. The first couple of series, coach, it looked like they were still trying to figure out what they were going to do and how, where the wrinkles were at in Cincinnati's defense early. I know some folks commented on Twitter to us, to BPE, and to Arkansas Sports Network. Why does he keep running the dive? Why does he keep trying to hit the A and the B gap instead of going outside or throwing the football? Coach, can you kind of expound a little bit on why an offensive coordinator would want to try to bait up the middle to set up the outside run?
Yeah, it's a twofold thing. I mean, they're not doing it thinking we're going to get not any yards. That's not the expectation. Yeah. The coordinator's got a plan. He looks at how they're lined up, and they've got a block scheme that I don't think the normal person can see, that's designed to be able to block that, whether it's pin the guy and pull and wrap a guard around or the center around that looks like it's going to be open. At the same time, you've got to do it just enough where those defensive ends won't fire up the field and stop your outside game. And so it all works together like a puzzle piece, and it doesn't matter, some parts, if you've got a puzzle of the ocean and in the middle of it is a real colorful Caribbean, boat line, cruise liner, and that's the colorful pieces, but the rest of them are just freaking blue. I mean, they're not any different than the other ones, but you still got to have that piece to make the puzzle work. And you have to run some things in the game that aren't going to be nearly as productive, so the other plays are productive. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but I mean, you can't do the same thing over and over. I think some of those Jefferson runs on the outside, some of those Rocket Sanders runs to the outside were made quite possible because we had run to the inside. As a matter of fact, one of KJ's nicer runs, I thought, came when, he faked to the running back one way. He stepped up like he was going up the middle, and then the end dove down inside and unblocked the end, and he just bounced it out. There's nobody there. 16 yards later, there he is. So you have to do some of them. I know people don't like stuff when it doesn't work. I mean, that's easy, but they don't understand. Coaches call some plays knowing very well they're not going to work, but they're going to set up something else.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the next thing's going. I mean, looking at Arkansas's defense on the next series, it seemed like Barry Odom started to dial up the pressure a little bit. Defensive line, the linebackers were starting to make more stunts towards the quarterback. With quarterback pressure, you had pressure from number 50, Eric Gregory, an Alabama transfer. This is a guy we've been talking about. Number 42, Drew Sanders, got his first sack of the season, and as a Razorback on back-to-back plays. So Gregory was in the backfield, and then Drew Sanders turned right around and got to him. forcing the Bearcats to have to punt again. On the next series, the Hogs will start to gain ground. The first down pass from Jefferson to Warren Thompson. That's a guy that we've talked about. I know Coach Pittman and the coaching staff had talked about him at length about the improvement that Warren has made over last year to this year. But again, they stalled out and ended with another punt. This time resulting in a touchback on a 50-yard kick. Cincinnati would drive all the way down to the Hogs 30-yard line the next series, only to miss another field goal from a 30-yard line. This time it was a 48-yard attempt by Coe. Danny, Coach, I want both of y'all to kind of chime in here. What does it do? And I want to hear the coach's opinion and I want to hear a fan's opinion, but what does it do to the mentality of a team or a fan when your kicker misses back-to-back? I mean, essentially chip shots. I mean, a 48-yarder's pretty good kick, but in a college level, D1 level, 48 yards is about an average kick these days. Coach, you want to go first, and then we'll let Danny tackle it. Yeah, go ahead.
It's you're already down when you have to trot your field goal kicker out there, because essentially it's a form of offensive failure. Now you're going to get points, yeah, but think about what it takes. You might get 12, 15 drives in a game. Okay. It takes 3 successful drives with a field goal to beat 1 drive with a touchdown. So when you trot your field goal kicker out there, he's got to make it, especially on the one Cincinnati had that was like a 21-yard field goal or whatever it was, a little short one. You've got to make that field goal. But when you trot your guy out there and you miss, you're already depressed because you sent him out there. Psychologically, it's a hit. And when he misses that field goal, I mean, it is an emotional letdown. It makes the coaches start questioning whether they should have trotted him out there. It makes them question how they're going to call the next 3rd down, because are we going to trot him back out there for another 4th down? Then you trot him out there and miss 2. Essentially, that's 2 completely wasted drives that they have in the game. So it is a big, big blow when a kicker misses a field goal, bigger than I think anybody in the stands realizes.
Yeah, and I mean, from just a fan perspective, it's just really frustrating, especially after, like, if I was a Cincinnati fan, he misses the first one, kind of shake it off, move on. But I feel like he's gonna have that still in his mind when he goes back out there the second time. It's gonna mess with his mind a little bit about it. So just the fact that went out there, missed another one. Like you said, at the level that they're playing at, he should be able to make those pretty easily. But yeah, just after that second one, you kind of lose a lot of faith in the player until they can kind of get back out there and make those kicks. But yeah.
And then it changes the game a little bit, Matt and Danny, but because of this. Think about if he makes those 2 field goals.
Mm-hmm.
In theory, it would have changed before that, but just take those 6 points and add them on. That last drive, you don't need a touchdown. You need a field goal. And the subsequent drive before that, they didn't need a touchdown. They needed a field goal to take the lead. It completely changes the football game in so many ways. And people tend to forget those. You remember interceptions, you remember those things, but we forget field goal misses.
Yeah, and Coach, it would come back to get them again. I mean, they would get other opportunities to kick later in the game. Arkansas took over after the missed kick. KJ went to work. I mean, it seemed like it took that long for the switch to get turned on, and once it got turned on, man, he was shagging down the sideline doing his thing. KJ went to work first with a 7-yard run to the Arkansas 37. Then he hit Thompson on a deep pass for 12 yards. Got him up to the Arkansas 49. Rocket Sanders followed up with a 9-yard run to the Cincinnati 42. Then they break off a 37-yard gain to the Rocket breaks off a 37-yard gain to the 5-yard line. And that goes back to what we were talking about a while ago. They had been hitting that dive play, and then all of a sudden they bounced it out to the right side, and Rocket was gone. The drive would culminate in a 5-yard jump pass from Jefferson to Trey Knox. The Hogs would go 70 yards in 57 seconds during that series of downs. Danny, tell me why you think Trey Knox is going to be such a big part of this offense moving forward this year.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we talked last week just about how the offense is going to look a lot different without Burks being there. A lot of people are going to get some more opportunities. I think that jump pass was probably one of the most hype moments of the game. And he kind of just had a killer game overall. He was a lot of fun to watch, and from what I've been seeing on Twitter and everything, he's one that a lot of people are starting to keep a closer eye on. Any articles about him, they're saying that he's going to be, one to watch from other teams like coming in. So I think he's going to probably wind up being one of our biggest pieces this year.
Yeah, in talking about Trey Knox, I saw some growth from him in the pass blocking game yesterday.
Yep.
His run blocking looked pretty good. He looked better. He looked improved. But I saw some improvement from him as far as just chipping linebackers off, chipping defensive ends off, giving KJ a little more time to do what he needs to do back there with the football. Cincinnati would take a kick on a touchback and end the half with a 12-yard run by LSU transfer Corey Kiner to end the first half of play with the Hogs leading 14-0. Coach, you said it a while ago, could have been 14-6 real easy. 2 missed field goals. I mean, it's a different ball game. Can you tell me what you would say if you're coaching Cincinnati, you missed 2 field goals, you've not been super productive on offense. The closest you've got so far, I think, was the 30-yard line, maybe the 28. What do you tell your team at halftime?
Well, I read this in our notes before we went on, and I was thinking, if I'm Cincinnati, you go in there and you didn't move the ball. No, there's no lying. Productivity is points on the board. It's not yards up and down the field as much as it is throwing some points on the board. But we did move the ball some, and we missed 2 field goals. We've got to do better than that. But you don't go in there and just be all over your team, because somehow you feel like you're playing terrible football and you're only down 14. And you were just 2 minutes away from only being down 7. And Arkansas went down and scored late. But you go in and you try to pump them off and make them feel better, because you're down. When you score 0 points on offense, the guys feel bad enough about themselves. You go in there and say, hey, if we change this one play here, one play there. I mean, look at that fumble by KJ Jefferson that occurred in the game. And, they had the ball in their own, they had the ball on the Razorback 4-yard line, and they get 2 false starts before they ever run a play from scrimmage. Those are easily correctable, and you focus on that, guys. If we take that away, we probably score a touchdown there. The game's different. So you do that. And then from the Arkansas standpoint, I'm just the opposite. I'm like, guys, we had a chance to put them away early. We moved the ball up and down the field, and we've done some really good things, but we've still got down and sputtered and made our mistakes. The holding penalty cost us 1 drive. Holdings are drive killers. We really should be up in this game 21-24-0. And I really believe that, Matt. I think they should have been. And but I think that goes back and shows their talented football teams. They should have been. But it's a scary game, and it got scary at the end because it's a young team, it's a first game, but they had a chance to really blow that thing open in the first half when Cincinnati was sputtering, especially after that opening interception. The Razorbacks did what they're supposed to, go down and score a touchdown. But they had other times when Cincinnati sputtered that if they could just find a way into the end zone, 14-0 is 21 or 24-0. I'm going to tell you, that is a big difference going into the half.
Yeah, and before we move on to the second half of the game, I think it's important to note that just in the second quarter, Arkansas was 4-7 on third downs, and they led the Bearcats in time of possession. They had 24 plays for 144 yards on offense, and they held Cincinnati to 17 plays for 87 yards. So.
I mean, that shows marked improvement on the defensive side of the football, based on what we looked at. Because, last night we were, post-game space, one of the things that we were looking at was a comparison of last year's first game to this year's first game. Personnel's somewhat similar. Of course, there's some differences in the secondary, receivers, things like that. But, we were looking at it, and the first half numbers were real similar. Now, the score was a little bit different. Arkansas was actually losing last year at Rice at halftime, but the yardage, the number of plays run, I mean, all those things, there was a lot of similarities there. Before we get into the second half, I want to give Blake an opportunity to talk about Mid-Delta land management.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really happy to have the support that we have. We from Mid-Delta Land Management. They're out of Lake Village, Arkansas, serving the entire state of Arkansas with specific land management strategies targeted to get the best value out of your property and increase your annual income return, and for premium land appreciation. So give them a shout at Mid-Delta Land Management today, 870-737-2217. Talk to them, get an appointment set up, figure out what it is that they can do for you, and give them some support.
Thanks, Blake. I appreciate that. I know the folks at Mid-Delta Land Management, they're good friends of ours, good friends of the program, and I know they appreciate anybody that gives them a call. I know they're willing to work with just about anybody. Guys, I want to hear something about, what your thoughts were from the first half of the game. I mean, was there one thing you saw specifically that just like stood out in your mind and made you go, what, this is it, or we got to fix this, or whatever, positive or negative? One thing we've always said when we're on Big Pig Energy, we're not going to pump sunshine. We're going to be real. So I want to hear y'all's takes. What do you think about the first half? Coach, if you want to take it, and then we'll go to Blake and then go to Dani.
The first thing that popped out was, and I've heard people say it already, KJ Jefferson looked a lot faster than he was last year. He's a very, very good runner with the ball. I don't want him to run. I want him to learn to slide a little bit if there's two guys there instead of take that one-on-one, because, he's a pretty good quarterback. We're going to need him. He got dinged up a little bit. You saw him limping around a little bit. A big part of our offense is his ability to run. Zero question about it. If he does not run, we're not nearly as effective because it changes the way the linebackers have to play and all that. He looks fast, and he's going to be able to make some bigger plays than I thought he would. A negative thing about something he did, had a pretty a wide open guy that I would have considered a touchdown pass on a post. He threw it about 2 yards behind the guy. I think that's something they need to correct as a quarterback. It's a foot thing. That's all it is. That's not a throwing thing. It's a foot thing. If they can get his feet right, but he does get the option to run so much. It's hard to get your feet set like a normal quarterback. So they're going to have to find that optimal level. Defensively, couldn't have been more pleased. You pitch a shutout against a super well coached team. I know they made some mistakes and missed a field goal, but man, and the defense stepped up. That interception run that you said, when it happens over a 3-year period, it's not an accident. It's something that's being coached, and they're giving the guys a chance to be free, be aggressive if you see that opportunity, and it paid off. Because if Cincinnati scores on that first drive instead, how does that affect psychology of the game? So couldn't have been more impressed with the defense. I'm always impressed with Barry Odom. I think he's outstanding. But I thought the adjustments that he started making, the defensive line, it's going to be a long year with them until somebody learns to rush the passer without having to blitz. But I thought Barry Odom picked his spots, blitzed well, put a little pressure, mixed it up on him, and did some things. And so overall, I thought with what he had to work with, I thought the defense did a great job in the first half. So those are the two things that stood out to me.
Yeah, I think for me, it was seeing a little the just kind of the early on inconsistency in the offense, which it was not unexpected. I think that we did see a lot of things that we can clean up and get corrected in the games coming up. I think one thing that really surprised me was Max Fletcher's day. I really kind of expected the punting game to not be somewhat of a liability in the first game. That wasn't where my head was of thinking about something that we potentially had to worry about. But that did not look too great, and that was something I feel like is just going to be a growth thing moving forward. But yeah, I was a little kind of surprised by that, but I think overall the first half was pretty well expected. I will say the crowd and everything when we jumped that route and picked that ball off it was pretty electric in there. That was definitely one of the louder moments that happened in there in a while. So
yeah, that interception, I feel like that was huge early on, just to kind of get us some momentum in the game, get everybody invested in it. I was just happy to have football back. I was like, I don't like, I'm just happy to be here watching it. I missed it. But yeah, I think overall, like our offense and our defense look pretty good. I think that I personally feel like we did a lot better in the in the first half than we did the second half on a lot of things. KJ seemed to kind of get in his groove in the second quarter. And I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it.
You know, it's funny you say that, because, you know, sitting in my house, you know, that first series, my friends know me well. They call me Sasquatch. I'm a bull in a china shop a lot of times. And I was sitting watching the game with my son, and there was, I remember what it was, that very first series. I had a TV tray sitting next to my leather recliner, a little old cheap $9 TV tray. And I had it in my hand, just kind of holding on to it, was going to get out of my chair. And I just went like, you know, give it one of those, and the damn TV tray just exploded. My son looks, he's like, "Is it like this all year round?" And I said, "It depends on how the game goes, son. Go down to Walmart, get me another TV tray." But no, you know, my thoughts seriously about the first half, you know, I thought we were a little conservative offensively at times in the first half. I felt like, and I said this last week, I thought we were going to be more heavy run than we were pass, and I think it was a little more balanced, you know, based on the play calls and the number of plays in the first 15. But I really wanted to see, and I didn't see it in the first half really, I wanted to see him test Cincinnati, you know, 25, 30 yards down the field, see what the receivers can do, you know, hitch and go, a go route, a flag route, something to open things up a little bit, you know. And, you know, to say that, looking at the stat line, I think we were averaging in the first half, I want to say Rocket Sanders averaged a little over 6 yards a carry in the first half. So, I mean, they obviously know more than what I do, and they get paid for it. So I still would like to see them open the offense up a little bit and try to get the receivers more involved early, especially deep. Starting off the second half, you know, Cincinnati came out, they had deferred, got the ball to start the second half. Those guys came out like they were shot out of a pistol. They ran 12 plays for 75 yards, ate up 4 minutes of clock, scored their first touchdown of the season on a 5-yard run by Corey Kiner, making it a score of 14-7 Hogs with around 10:59 to go in the third quarter. But the thing that I loved about this was the response that the Razorback offense had on the very next series. There's been times in the past where a team would come out and hit them in the mouth to start second half, and they'd fold up like a cheap aluminum lawn chair. You know, it's like there was no, it was like, you know, here it goes again. We're going to lose a ball game. This team's mentality, the way that their coaches are talking to them, it really comes out on the field in situations like this. They punch. Last year, there was games. The Alabama game, for instance. I know we didn't win that game. I was at the game. But the thing that the Alabama fans said to me after that game was, y'all are different. You know, we hit you. Every time we hit you, you hit us back. You know, there was no, you didn't lay down, you didn't stop, you didn't quit, you kept fighting. And you know, it tells me the mentality of the coaching staff. It tells me the mentality. They believe what Sam Pittman's preaching. You know, Arkansas responded on the next series with 2 rushes by Sanders for 5 yards, total of 5 yards. A short pass by Jefferson to Trey Knox again. His name kept coming up yesterday. Had a 6-yard reception. Jefferson would go on to complete a 29-yard pass to Rashad DeBinion, kid out of Georgia, running back, seeing his first action as a Hog. And on the next play, we see Malik Hornsby rush around the left side of the line with a gain of 13 yards. Coach, how important is it the Razorbacks find a way to put the ball in Hornsby's hands? And then the second part of this question, if you were the OC, how often would you want him to touch the football?
You know, to be quite honest, before I get into him, I love Matt Landers now. I think he's got a little CD Lamb look about him, and I think we need to be getting the ball into his hands more as well. But, you know, you're trying to figure that out in that first game and do it in the flow of the game and all that kind of stuff. Hornsby obviously looks to be a kid that could take something short and make it long, can make people miss in space and all that kind of stuff. They need to be real creative. Go back and look at a kid. Go YouTube Tavon Austin for West Virginia, back when he played college for West Virginia. And look how creative they were about getting him the ball. Just go out there and stack him behind the receiver and throw him a hitch pass out in open space and let them try to get a block and see what he can do against whoever else is coming out there after him and things like that. But he does look to be a kid. Now, we don't know what he's like in practice. Is he a tough kid? Is he showing up every day working, coming to meetings and all that? But if he's doing things right off the field, I think, as everybody does, we'll see him more and more. And he's an impact player for sure.
Well, and, going back to last winter, I mean, Sam Pittman has always said, if you transfer or put yourself in a portal, you can't come back. And they, through a couple of the players, I think KJ Jefferson got involved. There were some other guys. They fought and talked to Coach Pittman about bringing Malik back and getting him back in the fold with the Hogs. I mean, we've seen, little bits and pieces of how special this kid can be once he's got the football in his hands. The Hogs would finish off the drive with a beautiful pass to the left side of the boundary to number 9, Jaden Hazelwood, for another TD. Cam Little came on, added the extra point and widened the gap 21-7 over Cincinnati. Blake, early, this is mid-third quarter by this point. I mean, we're 8-9 minutes into the game in the second half, halfway there. What was the crowd like?
Well, I mean, I think the crowd was an important factor all throughout the entire game. Third quarter starts to get a little hazy, but every drive that we had, the crowd was engaged. It was loud in there. Like I said, kind of like what I said earlier, the energy in the stadium pretty much all day was great. But I want to go back and just say something quickly on Hornsby. I think everybody is going to be expecting a double pass. So we've got to do something different. I mean, that was, you watch that and seen it before, didn't really work last year. Let's find a way to get him something a little bit more, or a little bit less predictable.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, like Coach said, get him on a bubble screen, get him a little hitch pass with some blockers, get him on a jet sweep, get him on some sort of end around wheel route, something. I believe there was one play in the third quarter where they broke him out wide in motion, going to the weak side of the field, and got him. I mean, he was on a wheel route and he had the guy beat by 20 yards. I mean, it's one of those deals where you just hope that they see it on tape, which I'm sure they will. You see it on tape and identify it, and then the next time that happens, the next time they use it, they try to hit him deep.
From a coach's standpoint, though, and to defend, Coach Pittman and those guys, by what was said, he wasn't going to be on the team. Now, I'm hoping they didn't talk him into letting him back on the team because of his athletic prowess, but because he's a great kid. I'm hoping that's the case. Because I don't care how good a kid is. If he does what you say he can't do, you don't give him any option to come back on. So I'm hoping that's the case. But at the same time, I'm with them. I'm not going to stick him in, all of a sudden make him a superstar in a game, because that's not going to go anywhere. Then that shows big picture. The rest of these guys, sometimes I tell you this is a line you can't cross. But if you're good enough, I'll let you cross it. Then you got a bunch of Antonio Brown scenarios. So, to defend Sam and them, I bring him along slow too. I really do. I mean, it'd be quite lucky. He's fortunate to be able to be brought along at all. Athleticism is great. Star power is great. The potential is great. But you've still got to think big picture about the rest of the team. And you've got some discipline. You got some, things that have to be learned. And the organization has to be run right, or else you got chaos in a few weeks. And we've seen what that looks like. So, let's not go crazy saying we should have put him in and get him the ball too much. For just football, looks great. For a team concept, it's not nearly that simple.
No, absolutely, Coach. Cincinnati would respond on the ensuing possession with 3 quick plays for 71 yards and scoring on a 35-yard TD pass across the middle from Bryant to number 84, Nick Mardner of Cincinnati. What did you see from the secondary on this short drive from the Bearcats?
I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't remember the exact play. I just know that in the second half, I feel like our secondary kind of took a hit. There were a lot of plays that got a little bit iffy here and there. But for this one specifically, I don't really remember.
Blake?
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw just kind of in general, especially in the second, and especially in the third quarter position. It was just out of position. Things that you could really easily clean up. I didn't see anything that was, super glaring. I think that we do potentially have the reality of being thin in that position, thin in that entire area of the field. So I think it's, I don't want to say it's alarming, but I think that's going to be the function of the game to watch, and kind of watch with bated breath, I guess.
Coach.
Well, what I saw was, we say the good things about players. This player didn't do anything wrong, but they found a matchup they liked. They picked on Ladarius Bishop on that drive. I mean, 70 of the yards, 2 passes for 70-something yards, were both on him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, you can't go, well, 2 plays is telling of his ability or anything like that. The kid's a little bit of a freak athlete, and I saw him in high school, and he's got tons of potential and all that kind of stuff. But they did find that. They picked on it. And then after they picked on it the first time, I mean, I played some corner when I was in high school. Man, you're out there, and if you're a linebacker and you're and a ball's run up the middle and there's a clump of 9 guys, you can't see who missed the tackle when the back breaks out of there. And it's the same thing for a defensive lineman. If he's in the wrong spot or slants to the wrong guy, nobody knows. You get beat on defense as a corner, everybody knows you were the guy that got beat. It's you and another guy. That crap's in your head, and they knew to go right back and pick on him again. So I think it was 2 plays later, they hit him for a post route. He's in a coverage, so the coaches has confidence in him. Here's why I know they have confidence. 1, he was out there, and 2, after he got beat, they didn't do anything to help him on the next 2 plays. They still left him out there thinking he could do the job. So that tells me they've got some confidence in him. He's got the ability. He was in a tough situation, but if that gets repeated, then you got to take a look and go, okay, we're either asking him to do something he can't do, okay, or we got to help him out, one of the two. So, that was something that almost turned the game around for Cincinnati, because they're like, wow, 2 quick plays, we score a touchdown, we're right back in this thing.
Well, and to be fair, the secondary by this point had lost Miles Slusher. He went out. I'll be honest with you, when I first saw the hit yesterday, I thought he broke his neck. I really did. The way that his body was in there, the way that he went limp when he went down. Obviously, I'm about 99.9% sure he was unconscious. It was a blessing to see him set up and be able to walk off the field with some assistance. Still don't have an injury report on him yet. I know Pittman kind of alluded that he possibly had a concussion. I would imagine that he's got a concussion, possibly a neck stinger. If you've never had a stinger before, it's the freakiest thing in the world. I've had a couple. The concussions are pretty bad too, but a neck stinger will trip you out, because sometimes it can make just your arm go numb. It can make the left half side of your body go numb. You can lose control of your arms. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. I had one in high school, got a pretty good lick laid on me, playing tight end, and the whole right side of my body wouldn't work for like 15 minutes. Of course, they took me out of the game, took my helmet away. I couldn't play anymore. But it's just the way that I went in. It was a guy, the linebacker, had intercepted the ball, and I went in to make a tackle, and I didn't have my head in the right position. And I hit him weird, and it was like that quick, and it just a shooting pain, and everything's gone. And immediately I thought, I broke my neck. I'm laying on the ground screaming because I think I broke my neck. So, it's one of those kind of deals. But, Arkansas gets the ball back on the kickoff. This one, I still have trouble wrapping my mind around this. AJ Green decided to run the ball. Coach, and I'm going to have you speak to this in a minute, but think about this while I'm talking, but how often did you tell your kick return guys if a guy could kick it into the end zone to keep the ball in the end zone, not to bring it out?
100%.
100%. They brought it out. If we took it in the end zone like we started to, we'd have been on the 25. He ran it out, made it 16 yards, and then it got pushed back due to a holding penalty. I believe it was on Hudson Clark. They had a holding penalty, moved it back 10 yards to the 6. Arkansas would suffer a bobble snap on the very next play, and it was recovered by 97 Phillips for Cincinnati on the Arkansas 3-yard line. You know, this is where, you know, in the past, and we talked about this earlier, in the past, I've seen Arkansas teams fold up, you know, kind of bow down a little bit, you know, get down on themselves, get defeated. Didn't see that with his team yesterday. Didn't see it with the defense yesterday. The crowd really got into it at that point. Like the crowd, I think, recognized, and that's something that I think that we're still as fans at our university, and we talked about this yesterday on the space, you know, Arkansas, the difference between Fayetteville and Little Rock. You know, Little Rock was always, my daddy always used to say, the rednecks went to Little Rock, the country club folks went to Fayetteville, you know, and it's just difference of environment. Fayetteville's starting to become, and winning will do this, more of a raucous environment. You know, we've seen it with the baseball team. We know what happens in Bud Walton when things are going well. It gets loud, it gets intimidating. There was almost 75,000 Razorback fans in there yesterday. The home crowd got involved. Cincinnati had 4 penalties for 20 yards. I think back-to-back false start penalties. They had an illegal procedure penalty. They had a few successful short passes, ultimately had to settle for another field goal opportunity, and got as close as they got the whole day. Cut it to 21-17. That's the closest it had been since the start of the football game. You know, Blake, I know you told us what the crowd was like, so we're gonna leave that one alone. I don't want you to repeat yourself 15 times. So
yeah. I was in the beer line for that.
He was in the beer line. So yeah, I wish I was there with you, brother. Coach, tell me something. I mean, I know at high school it's a little different sometimes, but how can a rowdy home crowd affect a visiting team in a game like this?
Well, the obvious biggest thing is if you can affect the communication from the quarterback to the line, whether it's on the call of snapping the football, or whether it's on changing the plays, or whether it's on a guy missing communication, needs to communicate with them. That's the biggest thing it can do, because then it truly adversely affects you. I do think that players, you know, you hate it as a coach because you want them to be playing as hard as they can all the time. I think it does get that adrenaline pumping, gives them an extra quicker step, gives them a little invincibility feeling, gives them a little confidence. Everybody plays better with confidence because you don't hesitate and things like that. So, I mean, the crowds can have a big effect. What it can also affect is it also affects officials. There has been study after study showing that officials will fall in love with the crowd if the crowd's got the energy we talked about, and they will call for the home team. I mean, it is statistically proven over 20 years of data in all sports that the home teams get more calls, and the bigger the moment and the louder the crowd, the more the calls are get. So, I mean, the crowd can certainly affect a game in a lot of ways.
See, I wish I would have known that a long time ago. Then that explains why Mark Curls hates us so much. You know, the Hogs will get a little help from Cincinnati on D. Cincinnati committed a pass interference penalty, and, you know, had some great passes by KJ and some rushing by Rocket Sanders, but 2 incomplete passes to Thompson from the Cincinnati 14-yard line would force the Hogs to take a field goal by Cam Little and bring the Hogs ahead 24-17. You know, at that point, you know, Blake and I were kind of texting back and forth, and Blake was like, "Holy crap, I think your Cam Little prediction might be right." And I said, "Well, I hope not." You know, Hogs would kick off to Cincinnati late in the third. They began their drive from the 25. Bryant would continue to carve up the secondary with a 17-yard pass down the middle to Weil. If you haven't watched this kid Weil from Cincinnati, watch him as the season goes on. He is one of the best pass-catching tight ends in the country. This kid's going to play on Sunday somewhere. And he threw a deep ball down the right side to number 10, Chris McKellen's a kid we talked about last week, for 30 yards, followed up by a huge sack by Landon Jackson, a transfer from LSU, and Zach Williams, number 56 for the Hogs, ended in the third quarter. They would start the fourth with another deep pass by Bryant that was called back by a penalty on Cincinnati, then followed up by another incomplete pass, and multiple penalties on this drive for Cincinnati. Penalties plagued Cincinnati yesterday. It was uncharacteristic for a Luke Fickell football team. I watched them a lot last year. Watch Coach Fickell. It just did not look like the same team that I've seen the last couple of years out of Cincinnati from a penalty perspective. Arkansas would start their first drive of the fourth quarter with a A.J. Green rush for 6 yards, follow it up on a short pass to number 3, Matt Landers, and back-to-back sacks on Jefferson to lose 18 yards. We were talking about how good a job Trey Knox did, and that's the one thing that I said about Knox last week, and I've said it all offseason. He's got to get better in pass pro with these chip blocks. Chipping these linebackers, chipping these defensive ends. There was one point late yesterday in that fourth quarter drive that he kind of, I don't want to say he olayed the guy, but he released the guy too soon. And I realized why he released him, because his hands weren't inside the framework. He had got outside and he was trying to keep from getting a holding penalty. So, I mean, there's reasons behind it, because in the past, I think he would have held on longer than he should have. This time, I think he's got to work on repositioning his body and understanding how the guy's leaning to understand how to hold on to his block. Coach, I want to touch on something real quick. When you've got a close lead like this, does it change the way that you call your ball game when it gets late in the game?
Yeah, and if you study, I've studied play calling so much, it oftentimes costs you games. The old play not to lose simply means you're not playing the same way that got you the lead. You're not calling the same plays that got you the points, got you yards, got you the first downs. The very thing you're wanting now is to churn out first downs, and you're not calling things the same way. It's a tough spot, because as a coach, especially in the further we go in the world with social media and all that kind of stuff, the further we go, the more they know if you call it aggressively and you end up losing the game, everybody's going to be all over you on social media. You can't avoid it. It's going to be put in front of you. And so you kind of and then if you call it too conservatively and you lose the game, they say you played not to lose, which causes you to lose. Mm-hmm. So it's tough, but it does. That part gets in your head. And then on the sideline, it gets your, you're like, God, we've got to lead, we've got to conserve the ball. We've got to run the clock first and make the first down second. I always thought you got to make the first down first, run the clock second, and, attack what the defense is giving you. If they're going to plug 9 guys in the box, you're going to have to throw a safe pass. KJ doesn't throw interceptions anyway. Let's throw some little hitch passes out there to a side that we've got them outnumbered on, or something like that. Let's play action, get the linebackers to dive in and throw a quick slant that's a high percentage pass. But, it's one of the things that in coaching that will always go down and oftentimes end up defining a guy's career, how he does in that situation. But it's tough.
And following up, Cincinnati received the punt, Hogs 37-yard line. Again, another not a great punt. Number 10, Ben McClellan attempt to rush was stuffed by Zach Williams for a 2-yard loss. And this is where I literally, bad Achilles and all, jumped up out of my chair. Huge momentum swinging strip sack by Georgia Tech transfer number 14, Jordan Dominic. He not only strip sacked him, but he recovered the football on the fumble. Dani, I want to hit you real quick. What do you think about these transfers? I mean, how important, because last year, I think we kind of missed on a couple of guys, transfer-wise. This year, it seems like most of the guys that they've brought in are really starting to contribute early.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that strip sack by Dominic, that was huge. There were 2 main ones. We had Hazelwood and Landers that both had pretty even numbers. I think they each had like 3 receptions, but Hazelwood had 42 receiving yards. Landers had 43. So they were pretty even there, but really big components of the game. Sanders from Alabama, he had a sack in the middle of the second quarter on like a 3rd and 7. So that was solid. And then again, the interception at the beginning of the game by McLaughlin, that was, all of them that were playing yesterday were obviously putting us way ahead. It was nice to see. And I honestly have a lot more people that I'm excited to watch for the rest of the season out of it that were transfers. So.
Oh, absolutely. KJ Jefferson wasted no time with a big pass down the middle of the field to number 9, Jaden Hazelwood. Followed it up with a deep pass to the right side of the end zone to number 7, Trey Knox, for a 32-yard touchdown pass. The one thing I want to say about Trey Knox real quick, he recorded a career high 2 receiving touchdowns yesterday, hauling in passes of 5 and 32 yards. Knox entered the game with 4 total TDs, 3 as a freshman, 1 as a junior. He caught no balls, no touchdowns his sophomore year. I mean, that shows the development in the player. He hasn't quit. He hasn't stopped. He's doing what's being asked of him, and he's getting opportunities to contribute. Followed up that by another Cam Little extra point. The Hogs cushioned the lead late. It was 31-17. Cincinnati respond by a 9-play, 75-yard drive for another TD. You know, guys, it looked to me like the Hogs secondary struggled on that series against the pass. I mean, they allowed 56 of the 75 yards through the air on that series. Coach, how important is it to take a next man up mentality when the guy in front of you gets injured? I mean, we had a couple of guys go out hurt yesterday, specifically in the secondary. I mean, by that time we had lost Catalan. Slusher had been out a quarter and a half by that point. I mean, as a coach, what do you say to the next guy coming up?
I mean, you know, it's something honestly that doesn't matter as much right then as you've been preaching it in practice. And I think they've got to believe it before they walk in there, because they've already got the adrenaline flowing, the butterflies and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully they're preaching that before they ever walked up. But you walk in there and you do build the kid up. You say, listen, do what you do. You know, remind him, though, it's still a football game.
Mm-hmm.
You feel different right now because it's your first college action in a while, and it's a tight spot and it's a big game. But it's still football. Go out there and play what you've been coached to do, what you've shown us that you can do on the field. That's why you're here. And I'd tell him that and pat him on the butt and send him out.
Yeah. And you know, that I was taught pretty much the same way. You always have, when you're the guy behind the starter, you always have to have that next man mentality. If you don't, you're going to get caught with your pants around your ankles. You're going to get a fool made out of you. You've got to be ready to go when your number gets called. You know, the Hogs are going to kick off, allow the kickoff to go in the end zone to start the possession at the 25-yard line. Sanders and Jefferson, this is in the last plays of the game. Sanders and Jefferson would rush for a combined 31 yards. And there's that Davinian kid again with a 13-yard rush to close the game out. Ball game, Hogs win 31-24. BPE team, guys, I want to ask you this question. We asked Hog Twitter, you know, hashtag Hog Twitter, this question. Now that you've slept on the game, what grade would you give the team as a whole? And then what grade would you give the position groups? And that by position groups, offense, defense, special teams, A, B, C, and D. Blake, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with what I tweeted out about it. I gave us a B- overall. I could have given a B-. I obviously went B. I think that it was probably a bit humbling. I don't know that I think that the team realized where the shortcomings were. I think that they probably I would say if they were grading themselves, I would say that's probably about where they would rank as far as position groups go. I say the defense probably is probably in that low B range as well. I'm actually going to give the special teams, man, I don't want to give them a D, but that was not something that I was particularly impressed with yesterday. I think that there's a lot of room to get better there. I was honestly a little surprised. I mean, I've come to just really appreciate Scott Fountain and the stability, and just you don't have to worry about it. Like I don't think about special teams because it's no longer a liability in the Arkansas football program. I saw a little bit of some cracks in that window yesterday, so I'm hoping that they get that cleaned up. Offense, a B. I think that we haven't seen nearly the playbook. I think it's pretty vanilla yesterday. Look to see that open up quite a bit, and I think that that was probably just more of a kind of a test case. See what they can do, see what works well, see what doesn't, and kind of go from there. Yeah.
Dani?
I'd probably also give a B overall. I think that there was a lot to improve on, but it was the first game, so I don't want to be too tough about my rating, because I knew that there's going to be a lot of stuff that they're going to have to work out the kinks. But yeah, offense, defense, I give them both a B. Special teams, I'm kind of in the same boat with Blake. I feel like there's quite a bit to kind of fix there. I give him a C on that, but yeah.
Coach.
I'm going to grade for the first game rather than for a football game. For first game, I'm going to give them an A. Number one, it's the first ranked win, team we've beat that's ranked in whatever you said number
48 years,
74 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
That deserves an A. I thought, pitching a shutout in the first half. Cincinnati may not lose another game. Maybe they will, but Fickle's a very good football coach.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the freaking helmets coming off and stuff, their guys kept battling. They showed a few things that we've got to fix. I don't think it was all us making mistakes. I think they're a good football team, and against a good football team, they're going to make you look bad when you're maybe not bad at some spots. So, overall, I'll give them an A for the effort of that. I thought KJ was better than I thought he was going to be for the first game of the season with all new receivers, and timing's not there because nobody runs the same speed in practice they do in a game. The defense isn't the same speed in practice they do in games. They know they can't get hit. I was really pleased with that. I'm trying to talk while I'm watching this last play of the LSU game with 1 second left. Touchdown LSU, unbelievable. But anyway, they but then the punting game. I know there was a deficit, but we got it done. Didn't have a block punt. That kind of thing. We're 1 for 1 on field goals. We made some mistakes, but overall, I thought the defense played by far well enough to have a bigger lead than they had.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, the offense made the plays when it had to. We got new guys in key spots. I think Landers is going to get better and better. I think Trey Knox, I think we all talked about Trey Knox as being a good possibility. I think anytime a receiver can move down to tight end, he got a huge advantage over the guys that can go because they're not used to the speed he's got. An average receiver speed is a fast tight end and quick. And he's not afraid to catch the ball over the middle and do those blocks like you were talking about, Chip, give the quarterback time. He can still be able to fast enough to get out in the route. So I give him an A. I was more than pleased with what I saw. How about that? They blocked the freaking extra point, and that's how they lose. Tied it up, and you think they blocked the point. I just love college football, Matt. Sorry, and you got to pull
it's
against
back.
LSU.
It's back.
You got to pull against LSU.
Oh, absolutely. All day, twice on Sunday. What are you talking about?
Glad to see them get their booty spanked or beat anyway. And maybe make it better because they tied it up. They thought they had tied it up with an extra point and get the extra point blocked. So anyway, but give them an A. And if those coaches do what they've shown that they can do last year, and that's improve a little bit every game, then, they're not going to get much more than an A from me next time because there's always got to be room for improvement. But, man, for that first game and for a good football team, Cincinnati, mark my words, may run the table the rest of the year with their schedule. And then all of a sudden that game looks like a pretty dang good win right there.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off what you said right there, Cincinnati in the league that they play in, the AAC, there's really only one team I think that might give them some trouble, and that's SMU with Rhett Lashlee. Watched a little bit of SMU yesterday. They looked very, very potent on offense. A lot of the players that were there last year playing for Coach Sonny Dykes are still at SMU. It's a different league, different kind of football. Cincinnati's tough. I mean, they were physical the whole game. I mean, we told folks last week, some folks thought we were crazy. We didn't know what we were talking about. We told them this is going to be a physical football game. And I think Cincinnati came out with a little bit of chip on their shoulder because they felt like they kind of got embarrassed a little bit by Alabama. And I think that may have had something to do with the physicality of the way they were playing because there were some licks getting laid early. As far as my grade goes, I'm the kind of guy I want to see improvement on everything. Okay. I believe there's everything that they've done yesterday that included them winning the football game. They could do better. The offense, as a whole, I'm going to give them a B plus, but on offense, I gave them a B plus, and on defense, I gave them a C. And the reason I gave them a C on defense was some things I saw from the linebacker position, lack of wrapping up on running backs, guys running through tackles, hitting guys too high, technique things that I want to see get cleaned up, and I believe 100% that they're going to get cleaned up. I want to see the defensive line get more push. we're going to talk about the defensive line here in just a little bit when we get to talk about South Carolina, about what I think they're going to be able to do there. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. So there's a lot of things that I want to see on defense that I want to see improve. So I'm going to give the defense a C. So that kind of balances everything out. I want to see everything get better. Special teams, I'm a Blake. I'm like a high C, low B, like a 79% is kind of where I'm at with special teams. Dani, real quick, give us the Twitter hot takes, the Hog Twitter hot takes this week.
I gotcha. We have 3 that came from our replies on Twitter this week. First one's from Randall Hogg, WPS. I think a lot of us know Randall. He said, I think it was just first game jitters. KJ seemed to be off late in the second half and in the last half of the game. We had issues running the ball up the middle on Cincinnati yesterday, but we're successful on the edges. Trey Knox was money all day. I think we've all kind of made that clear that Trey Knox was absolutely killing it for the majority of the game. Second one comes from Sean TW19, Sean Woodard. Said KJ looks like he improved as a passer and looks quicker than last season. It also looked like we have multiple receivers on offense. Trey Knox showed much improvement, and running backs are deep. DL and LB both look strong, and we got decent penetration despite Cincinnati and the missed holding calls. He also asked where Reed Bauer was. I honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I completely blanked on Reed Bauer yesterday. I saw his tweet about it and I was like, oh, that's a good question. And the last one is from Kevin Davidson, Katie, our chief, said, we beat a really good Cincinnati team yesterday, very well coached. I worry about the DL, even though they played okay. In prior years, we would have collapsed with 2 main defenders out with injury. Wants to see the OL improve with more reps as well.
Blake, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about Mid-Delta Land Management. Then I want to get into your ASN Razorback Sports recap.
You got it. Let's go. Mid-Delta Land Management out of Lake Village, Arkansas, serving the entire state of Arkansas with specific land management strategies targeted to get the best value out of your property and increase your annual income return and produce premium land appreciation. Call our partners at Mid-Delta Land Management today, 870-737-2217. Schedule an appointment with them. They're great supporters of the show. Sorry I butchered that first shout out. Hopefully that one was better. Moving on a little bit. So we don't want to just spend the entire time talking about football, even though obviously that's good. That's what we love to do. So a couple other sports in action over the last week. Volleyball actually just got back from Fort Collins. They ended up winning 3 in a row to go to 4-1 overall on the season. They are going to come back here for a little while. Next up is the Arkansas Invitational. We've got UALR on Friday the 9th at 10 a.m. starting that. They'll play FIU at 7:30 that same day, and then they will play Colorado on the 11th Sunday at 1 p.m. Get out and check out volleyball. They're doing great so far this year. They did have a win over number 8 Washington, I believe. So big shout out for that. The women's soccer team, I actually got to go check out a couple of their matches this last week with Scuba Steve. We saw them play Arkansas State, beat them 4-1, watched them play Western Michigan. That game actually ended up getting rained out at half. They did give that 3-0 win. And then today they played Michigan State and actually came out with a win there too for 1-0 win. They actually are done at home for about the next 2 weeks. They don't come back until the 22nd of September is their next game in Fayetteville. They're going to go to Provo and then they go play in Phoenix, and then they start SEC play in Starkville right after that. So currently ranked, I believe, in the top 10 still. So go out and check out a soccer game if you haven't been there. Really great time. Couple of other quick things. Women's golf, they placed 5th in the Carmel Cup this last week, ranked 22 in the country. Men's cross country, ranked number 12. They opened up in Stillwater, got a 2nd place finish there. Women's cross country, they are ranked number 9, and they took the team title in Stillwater at the same time. So good stuff. Check out all our other sports, and we'll try to keep you updated throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's one thing we're going to do here at Big Pig Energy throughout the fall, going into the winter. We're going to try to make sure we highlight what the rest of the Razorback sporting groups are doing. A lot of great coaches on staff, a lot of great programs going on. We got some historic things happening at the university right now with our coaching staff that Mr. Yurachek and the rest of the athletic department have been able to put together. So we're really excited about them. Really quick, we're gonna be moving quickly here. South Carolina pregame. Saturday's contest against the South Carolina Gamecocks. The game starts at 11 a.m. in Fayetteville and will be on ESPN. Real quick, Danny Blake, what do you guys think the crowd's going to be like for an 11 o'clock game? I know last year during the Auburn game, the crowd was a little down. And to me, that was a big game for us based on what had happened in 2020. What do you think the crowd's going to be like Saturday morning?
I was actually at
the
Auburn. I was at the Auburn game last year. That's the one that I went home for, and I agree with you there. There was not a lot of people there early. I am hoping that this year, since we've kind of been, gaining more and more hype throughout last season, the off season, things like that, and especially coming off of a win this week, I'm hoping that the fans will get there, early, fill the stadium, just be ready to rock.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough. I think anytime you have those 11 a.m. kickoffs, it's just tough to get people in the seats. It's tough to make it. I mean, honestly, it's tough for me to make it up there for an 11 a.m. kickoff. I mean, the day just gets away from you pretty early on, and especially if you stop at any tailgates or anything like that. But unfortunately, I will not be able to be there, so I'm kind of curious to see what that looks like. But I do think one of the smart things that the university has done is get more people into those club areas where you can get in early. It brings people in early, especially if you've got access to free drinks and food. I know that's getting me into that place earlier. So I think that the more kind of stuff like that they do, better chance you have of people getting there actually and getting in their seats.
Well, and to your point, both of your points, something that the Razorback fan base has got to learn, and we saw this last season when we went to Georgia, you got to show up. You got to be there 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever time it is, you got to show up for your football team. I mean, I was in Athens last season. That environment was nuts at 12 o'clock, and it was a 12 o'clock start because it's Eastern time zone, but effectively an 11 o'clock kick. That was crazy. I've never experienced anything like that on an 11 o'clock game in my life.
You know what, Matt, if you don't care if I step in as well on something real quick. With the, with the fans that either are going late or, maybe they just decide to skip the game, I feel like they take it for granted because they're there. They can go, any week. I feel like you'll feel this, but like not living in Northwest Arkansas and not being able to go to those games, that's the worst. That is the worst feeling because all I want to do is be there and cheer them on. So like if you can be there, be there. Like,
it's just like basketball. Blake and I went through this back during basketball season. If you're not going, give your tickets to somebody or sell them to somebody that can go.
Yeah, don't sell them for like $800, but
fill the stadium, get the stadium. The kids have worked so hard. These guys, these young men, the coaches have worked so hard all off season. We need to be there to support them.
Special shout out! I will have a ticket for sale. hit up my Twitter.
So it's funny, because going to that, I've listened. Being in Alabama as long as I have, I've been in there since Coach Saban showed back up in Tuscaloosa. God help us. 17 years of misery. But he from time to time will chastise the fan base when they don't show up. And I have to wonder myself, and I know Saban and Pittman are different men, different personalities, different ways of doing things. At what point does Sam go, hey guys, we're one Razorback, show up for this ball game? When does Hunter say, hey, we really need you guys? I mean, they did it during basketball season. They did it for the Auburn game. They did it against Kentucky. They did it for senior night for the ladies. When are they going to do it for the football team? When are they going to make that call? Because it's not too early in the season for us to stub our toe. Like the Hogs, the Gamecocks won their home opener against Georgia State, 35-14. Don't let the score fool you. It was a struggle win for South Carolina. They started off very, very slow, but pulled it off late with key plays on special teams. Coach was talking about that earlier. Special teams can either go really, really good, or sometimes it can go really, really bad. It went really, really bad for Georgia State. Their special teams, South Carolina special teams, were legit last night. They recorded a 79-yard punt. They had two 50-yard plus 50-yard field goals. Had a first down on a fake field goal, and then they had two blocked punts, both returned, scoop and score for touchdowns. Getting into the main part of the game, this is the thing that I want to hear Coach talk about. Oklahoma transfer Spencer Rattler. I mean, we've seen him on the media. We know what happened at Oklahoma last year. He wasn't really on his game last night. He went 23 of 37 for 226 yards in the air. He threw two interceptions, but showed just how mobile he is rolling to his right and extending plays. A couple of offensive players to watch. Number 7, of course, Spencer Rattler. Number 1, Marshawn Lloyd's their main tailback. Number 13, Jalen Brooks at tailback. And then number 3, Antwain Wells Jr. at receiver. Coach, how difficult is it to game plan for a quarterback that is mobile as Rattler can be, but he can also beat you with his arm?
Well, I mean, we've got our work cut out for us. We hadn't shown the ability to do a great job. That's one of the weaknesses that we've had in the past. And I think, you've got to be able to plan accordingly and decide where do you want him to have the most chance to beat you.
Mm-hmm.
And is that with his feet or with his arm? Looking at what he did this week, I'd rather him not be able to beat me with his feet, because I don't know that he can go out there and just beat you with his arm only. He's got to test some other guys to be able to step up and do that. So I hope they keep him in the pocket. I hope they work on not running their ends too far up the field and opening a gap between the tackle and the guard for him to run through. I hope they are really disciplined about that week and make him try to beat us throwing the football. At the same time, one of the things that make a guy like him run more is pressure. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit of a blessing in disguise that we're not able to pressure the quarterback a ton with our front four to force him out of the pocket. Maybe he will stand in there some on his own, but obviously a mobile quarterback presents a lot of different disadvantages for a defense, because you have to decide to commit a guy to him or not.
Well, there's two things that I've seen watching Spencer Rattler over the last couple of years. I mean, I've watched Oklahoma play a lot of football because I've always been interested in what Lincoln Riley was doing from an offensive perspective. And then especially last season when the announcement came out that there was an opportunity for Oklahoma to end up in the conference, I kind of got a little excited because I want to see Lincoln Riley week in, week out. And of course, he's not there anymore, but I want to see him week in, week out go against the SEC's defensive coordinators. One thing that I saw with him last year, specifically in the Texas game, when they force him to his left, he's really, really poor. He does not throw the ball well moving to the left side of the field, to his left. Both interceptions he had last night, he was moving to his left. So I kind of hope the defensive guy in me kind of hopes they stick Drew Sanders on him as a spy and let the rest of the secondary do their job and keep the ball in front of him and try to make him make a mistake, but keep him from rolling to the right side of the field. One thing that I want to note, last season, South Carolina suffered from a very, very poor offensive line. They returned all their starters from last season, but what I saw last night and again this morning, reviewing their game, I didn't see a whole lot of improvement on their offensive line. The group that was last in the SEC from a analytics point of view, from the numbers. The skill position talent I think is there, but the Achilles heel on this offense for South Carolina is that offensive line. And that could be a blessing or a curse for us, depending on how we handle Spencer Rattler. So I kind of want to watch and see what we do against their offensive line with our defensive front. South Carolina's defense is coordinated by a guy named Clayton White. I know some guys that know this cat. He's very well respected among college coaches and high school coaches across the Southeast, but he's not really a household name yet. His D held Georgia State to 200 yards on the ground on 40 carries, which is most of which came after the Gamecocks had a pretty healthy lead. They held Georgia State to 1 out of 6 on third downs. I mean, if you think about it, Georgia State only had 6 opportunities on third down the whole game. I mean, that's not a whole lot of offensive opportunities. State's quarterback went a measly 7 for 29 for 111 yards against USC. Some defenders to watch for the Gamecocks. Number 0, Debo Williams. Linebacker, number 9, Cam Smith. Number 28, DB Darius Rush. And number 24, Marcellus Dial. We'll get more into South Carolina content, South Carolina chopping up the South Carolina game on our Thursday night space. So make sure you join us at the ASN space, Big Pig Energy space on ASN on Twitter. We'll talk about that Thursday night at 8 o'clock Central. The last thing we're going to do tonight, Coach Kelley's Pick'em. Last week's results. You know, we talked about this before the call. Coach Kelley's a little peeved at me, and it's my fault. I set him up wrong. He thought he was picking against the spread. We're picking against just chalk because, unfortunately, we got a couple of people that have never done sports betting before, so they don't understand it all. But that's why we got Coach Kelley here, because he's going to teach these guys how to do this sports betting. Last week's results real quick. West Virginia versus Pitt. Pitt won 31-28. Illinois versus Indiana. IU won 23-20. Oregon, UGA won 49-3. That was an absolute beatdown yesterday. It was going up the same time that Arkansas was playing, so I didn't get to watch it yet. But that's on my slate for Labor Day tomorrow to watch Oregon. Bo Nix has lost to UGA 4 years in a row, pretty badly in all 4 games. Memphis at Mississippi State. State won 49-23 in a rain-drenched game. This one was kind of a surprise. I thought it would be a little closer. Notre Dame at Ohio State. State won 21-10. FSU LSU. Guys, how did you pick that game?
Pick Florida State.
You had Florida State. All right, so Blake is 6-1. Coach, how'd you pick Florida State? Do you remember? Did you pick LSU?
Florida State, I believe. I would never pick LSU.
Okay. Smart man. 4-3. Dani?
I picked LSU for that one.
God, I'm going to take your Razorback card.
I have regrets.
I picked FSU because I'm like, Coach, I never picked LSU in nothing. I picked Florida State. Free Shoes University all the way.
Right, so where are we at?
Huh? I'm going to get to that in just 1 second. Cincinnati at Arkansas. Hogs won 31-24. Leading the pack this week, Dani, 6-1. Blake is 6-1. Y'all are tied. I'm next in line, 5-2. Coach is 4-3 on the week. Again, forgive me, Coach. I know we said I thought I told you we were going chalk. You thought we were going points. Totally
I made money. I made money.
Hey, that's all that matters.
4 again against the spread's a winner.
We've got to settle this. Who picked the closer? Who had the margin of victory closer on the Arkansas Cincy game between Dani and I?
On the what? On the score?
Yeah,
between Dani and I. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who actually won this.
Well, see, this is not a week by week winner. This is. I know we're going long haul, baby. You're tied right now. Just accept it that you're tied with Dani. You're gonna have opportunities to take the lead. We're not doing a tiebreaker right now. Tiebreaker at the end of the season, not today.
Don't worry, he'd lose that too. It's okay.
Fine. Oh, whatever.
Oh, I got a lot of smack talking going on. All right, so this week's games, we've got a good slate of ball games coming up this week. Alabama at Texas in Austin. Alabama's 19.5-point favorite on the road. Over and under 61.5. Coach, you want to do these game at a time, or you want to do them all at once?
Are we picking winners? Is that what we're doing?
We're picking winners, Coach. We're not picking spread.
Winners. Okay, well then you absolutely. Is there anybody not picking Alabama? I'm keeping up with these things this time.
I am. I don't think there's anybody in here that is not picking Alabama. But for the bettors out there, I want them to hear what your opinion is on the betting lines too.
The bettors is I'm playing Texas. I like the game. I think Texas is going to keep it. Sarkisian's coached against Saban. He knows if there's weaknesses on that defense or Saban's scheme, he would know better than anybody. So I think they keep it close enough. Notre Dame game, by the way, wasn't a blowout. With 4 minutes left, it was a one-score game. And then Ohio State scored at the end right there. I think it's the same thing against Texas this week. I think it's probably a 2-score game. And maybe at the end, the Tide has a chance to put it away, make it a 3-score game. But Texas is against the spread what I'd pick.
All right. Wake Forest at Vandy. Wake's a 6.5-point favorite. Over and under 61.5.
I wouldn't play Vanderbilt with stolen money. So if that tells you anything, and Wake Forest didn't look great. Vanderbilt looked great against Hawaii, that first game thing. But I think Wake Forest covers that.
Okay. App State at ATM down in College Station. Texas A&M is a 16.5-point favorite, over and under 54.
Man, did you what a game? If anybody watched that yesterday, did anybody see any of that? Who looked bad?
There was no
A&M.
defense played. Oh, the A&M game?
Oh yeah.
I'm talking about the App State game.
App
Oh,
State,
yeah, I saw
North
them both.
Carolina. Yeah, they were both bad.
They were, or were they great offense?
I think it was just really, really good offense and a lot of missed things on defense. I really think.
Yeah,
I'm
I think
picking App State to upset.
Ooh,
Are you? I'm writing it down right here.
Yep,
So
100%.
that is strong.
Alabama, App State. Who'd you have on Wake Forest and Vanderbilt?
Yeah, Vandy.
You had Vandy? God, going SEC. Okay, I like your loyalty. Danny, who'd you have on Vandy and Wake Forest?
I went Vandy on that one.
Vandy, okay. How about App State and A&M?
I'll go A&M. They'll probably burn me, but
Matt, who'd you have on Vandy, Wake Forest?
Man, I got to go with a line. I'm taking Wake.
Okay, I'm taking.
And then
Wake.
App State, A&M. Jeez, my heart says take App State. I'm gonna take App State, but I'm gonna take App State with different points. I'm gonna take App State with 3 because I don't think A&M's got a defense that can stop App State enough to keep them from getting it. I think it's gonna be closer than 16.5.
Hey, listen, Texas A&M is going to roll them up.
I just don't know, Coach.
You might be right.
I'm laying the 16.5 points. I'm
Okay.
saying A&M's got to win by 16. Now, for our purposes, they just have to win for me. But for my money's purposes, it has to be A&M.
See, Coach, I don't care if Texas A&M was playing ISIS. I ain't picking A&M. It's kind of like LSU. I just can't do it.
A&M came off a big. I mean, App State came off a big win, a big game last week.
Yeah.
A little bit of a letdown this week for that. They put all their eggs. That's an interstate rivalry.
I just feel like App State or ATM or Texas A&M, whatever you want to call them these days. I call them the big money Aggies. I feel like that they're going to overlook App State a little bit. I really do. I feel like they're going to sleep on them a little bit. And Jimbo Fisher, over the years, as a head coach, there have been times where his teams have looked past somebody and somebody snatched up and beat them, or they come off a win and have a letdown. Like last year, they beat Alabama and then turn around and lose Mississippi State. I mean, it's like it's Jekyll and Hyde with that with that team. And I'm not sold on Haynes King yet as their starting quarterback, based on what I saw in the first half against Sam Houston State. And no knock to Sam Houston State. I mean, they were FCS champion last year. They're not a D1 football team yet, but I mean, I'm not sold on them yet. I'm not buying A&M yet. Just not.
A&M by at least 24.
That's strong. Tennessee Pitt. This is another one. I can't. I'm gonna let you guys go first. So Tennessee Pitt. Tennessee's a 5-point favorite at home, over and under 65.
I'm going Pitt.
I'm going Pitt on this one. I hate Tennessee. So
Drake's Pitt, Danny's Pitt, Matt.
I'm taking Pitt plus the points. I'm taking Pitt plus 5.
Well, you're picking them straight up for our purposes.
I know.
I'm taking Tennessee.
I'm never going to let it go.
Tennessee is going to lay the lumber on those guys and whip them, make them like it.
I think Pitt's defense is better than Tennessee's got. I think Pitt's going to get a stop or two during that game. I really do.
Well, they're going to need more than that.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker's a good ball player, but I think Pitt's got something for him. Kentucky at Florida. Florida by 5.5, over and under 51.5.
Kentucky.
In the swamp?
I said Florida on this one. I don't have a reason
I don't-
behind it, but I picked
I
Florida.
don't think the Swamp's like half as intimidating as it used to be. I don't think people are scared to go in there and play. I really don't. I don't trust Florida's team. I mean, I really think they should have lost that game. But I think it is what it is. I think Kentucky's got an axe to grind. I think Kentucky wins by 10 at least.
Goodness. I mean, I got to take into consideration what Kentucky's done over the last couple of years. Mark Stoops has got a hell of a ball team in Lexington. They kind of got that Florida monkey off their back last year. But I don't think they're going down into. I really don't see them going into Gainesville because it was evident by yesterday's game what I saw. Billy Napier's got those boys believing they can play football again, and Billy Napier is a hell of a football coach. I got Florida winning, but I don't think it's going to be as close as 5.5. I think it's going to be a little closer than that. I'm taking Florida in 3.
I'm taking Florida to win and to cover that spread. I think it'll be close, though. I wouldn't play the game with real money because I do think there's a chance to go the other way. Man, I like that quarterback from Florida. He looked good. I think Billy, I think I'm with you all over it, man. I think Billy Napier's a very, very, very good football coach, and I think they needed what they got this week. I think Florida's a team that's going to surprise. They're not going to be able to be consistently at a high level this year, but I think they're going to pop up and beat a couple teams in the SEC that people don't expect them to beat. Kentucky's solid talent-wise. They've always just let us down quarterback-wise. And until you do that, you're never going to be all you can be in the SEC. You've got to have that piece too.
And I'm going to throw a hot take in on this game. I've followed a lot of Nick Saban's assistants over the years, living in Alabama, been around the program some. Billy Napier may be the best assistant coach that Saban's had go off other than maybe Lane Kiffin. Billy Napier can flat coach his butt off. This guy knows what he's doing. Baylor, BYU. Actually, I think it's the other way around. I think BYU's at Baylor. Baylor -3. Over and under is 52.5. That's the closest line we've got in this whole deal is that BYU Baylor game.
Yeah, I take BYU on this one.
Ooh, that's strong, man.
Yeah, I'm a big Dave Aranda fan.
Yeah, I'm taking Baylor. I'm taking Baylor +6.
So, Blake, are you Baylor?
Yep.
Straight up.
Yep.
Okay. Man, we need to hope for us that BYU wins.
Yeah.
Because then if we go out and beat them, that makes us look better. But BYU at BYU, it's gonna be tough. Golly, I think that's a tough game. I think that's a toss-up game. I'll go with BYU because I'm gonna be pulling for them.
All right, last game, it's a home game. South Carolina at Arkansas. Hogs are 9.5-point favorites by Caesars Sportsbook, over and under 52.5. We're going to talk more about this game on Thursday night on the BPE Arkansas Sports Network space on Twitter at 8 o'clock. But I want to hear, guys, your take on the win. Who's going to win, South Carolina, Arkansas?
I think it's like the Bama game.
Go ahead, Blake.
Ask them.
I'm taking Arkansas 42-21.
I'm gonna take Arkansas. I haven't even thought about the score. I'll say 35-27.
Close. I'm definitely taking the Hogs and the points. Arkansas 9.5. I got Arkansas. I'm going to say Arkansas 35. South Carolina 28.
I'm going to say Arkansas 41. South Carolina 27.
Ooh, coach is going strong too. Once you and Blake get together on this, my gosh. All right, guys, we got our picks for the week. I appreciate you guys being a part of this tonight. I know we ran a little over on time. Our listeners out there if you're watching. We appreciate you taking the time to spend with us tonight. Look for us Thursday night on the Big Pig Energy. I keep wanting to say the other word, Blake, but I'm not going to do it. I promised myself I'm not going to do it. Join us on Thursday. I know it. I have to change everything. Join us Thursday night on Twitter on the Big Pig Energy South Carolina pregame space. We'll have a couple of guests. We're going to try to have a couple of possible special guests. I'm working on some things right now. Make sure you support our sponsor, Mid-Delta Land Management out of Lake Village, Arkansas. The ads are posted on Twitter. They're posted on our YouTube page and our Facebook page of Arkansas Sports Network. This has been Coach Kelley, Blake Sanders, Dani Beason, and I'm Matt Mosley. We appreciate you taking the time to spend with us tonight. We'll see you next week. Have a great evening.